energy from the other energies, the lower chakras. So Muladhara chakra, the position, the physical location of Muladhara chakra is inside the vaginal opening against the posterior wall of the vaginal canal, just like right where it goes into the cervix, against the back wall of the vaginal opening, the back wall of the vaginal canal. It's like, it depends, on your size and on different things, but it's 2 or 3 inches in to the vagina, and you'll have a much higher awareness of it now if you do this nose tip thing. And so now we're doing practices to physically engage the prana there. We're doing gross movements with our bodies, right? We're contracting the vaginal muscles like this and releasing them and contracting them and releasing them. And this is in terms of the gross body, it's subtle. But in terms of the subtle body, it's very gross, okay? But it works, right? It's going to work for us because we have these bodies and there's some kind of reason why we do. So, one of the reasons is that we get to use it in a gross way as well as a subtle way. So to use the gross body, you can think, oh, I'm going to activate my vaginal muscles, and oh, but I'm not too sure that I'm isolating the vaginal muscles, right? So now let's do another little meditation. This time we'll work on one of the mudras called Sahajali Mudra. Sahajali Mudra is the female version of Vajrali Mudra, it's called in males. And Sahajali Mudra is one of the mudras that's discussed in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, and it is the engagement of the energies at the anterior part of the pelvic floor. So the pelvic floor group of muscles has an anterior part. It's pubococcygeus. It's kind of like the muscles which connect to the pubic bone. Pubococcygeal, pubic bone to coccyx type muscles. And then the middle part of the pelvic floor is the vaginal opening, right? The vaginal muscles are a completely different set of muscles, clearly, right? Because they have different functions. We know this is true because they have different functions, right? Then the posterior part of the pelvic floor has a completely different set of functions again, and that's the anal sphincter. So the anal sphincter, ischio-coccygeus, connecting the muscles from the ischium to the coccyx, and the ilium to the coccyx. This is another group of muscles at the back, the posterior part of the pelvic floor. So these 3 different groups of muscles comprise the physical pelvic floor, and they all have completely different functions in the physical body, right? And they all have completely different functions in the subtle body, and they all have completely different functions in the physical body as subtle stabilizers, as opposed to their primary functions. So we'll do a little gross body anatomy, okay? Is it okay with everyone? Mm-hmm. It's helpful because we, understand those kinds of structures probably a little better than we understand subtle body structures. So the urethral sphincter, the front part of the pelvic floor, lets us pee. That's the primary function, right? To expel waste fluids from the bladder. So that sphincter there is called the urethral sphincter. And sphincter is something that goes like this. So there is a thing called the peristalsis of the bladder. Does everyone know what peristalsis is? Peristalsis is that thing that the bowel, the large intestine, does when you have to have a bowel movement. You know that feeling of, I gotta go to the bathroom. That's because the the greater intestine, the descending colon, is going like this, pumping. It's pumping the feces down, and you can feel it there. Physically, it's there. It's like you gotta go. The bladder has a similar function, peristaltic action of the bladder, and it's much subtler. But how do we know that the peristaltic function of the bladder is working? Because you have to pee. And actually, it's not a good idea to pee until you have to. It's not a good idea.
Why?
because if you do, that peristaltic action of the bladder starts to doesn't get it. I mean, it's like, I didn't say to pee, why are you peeing? And you're trying to say, because we're going to the mall and we're going to be in the car for 20 minutes, or because there might not be a bathroom for a while, right? We all do that, right? Especially with our kids. So this is not a good idea. So what will happen if we continue to insist on peeing when we don't have to is that the peristaltic action of the bladder becomes weaker and weaker, and then pretty soon you don't ever really have to pee, and it's not like a really strong thing, and when you go, it doesn't come really strong, it's not like a stream, you know what I mean? Like when you really have to go, right? And you go, it's like, am I right?
Yes.
It's a strong, steady stream, and when you're done, you're done. And if you pee when you have that, it's very good. If you pee when you don't have that, you're kind of trying to pee, and a little bit comes out, and you think you're done, and you get up and you think, oh, I wasn't done. And stuff like that starts to happen, and that's not a good thing.
So that's caffeine and all those things kind of make that worse, right?
Well, I mean, it's what do they call it?
Overstimulates?
Diuretics, right? They're diuretics.
They're overstimulated?
Yeah, exactly. That's really true. Yeah, I mean, I hadn't thought about that right this moment, but yes, you're right. They do overstimulate that peristaltic action of the bladder, right? And plus the fact that they are diuretics and they pull the fluids and make you want to pee. I mean, they actually literally fill the bladder. So there's that too. But the thing that's really not healthy to do is that thing. So, so for example, how many of us poo just in case? You know what I mean? Like, do you ever go to the bathroom and think, oh, well, I better go and have a bowel movement, just in case, right? Fortunately, it's not possible to do it. If it were possible to do it, we probably would do it. We'd be like, well, I don't have time between now and when I have to leave for work, so you know what? I'm going to poo now. It's a good thing that actually we can't do that, because we'd probably be trying to schedule that too. But, so that's something to remember about the peristaltic action of the bladder. So the urethral, it's a hard one to say. The urethral sphincter is not so strong as the peristaltic action of the anal sphincters. And then the sphincter action of the vagina is completely different, right? Like that's going to be working when you're childbearing or having sex or whatever else you do when you go like this with your vagina, right? I don't know. Mula Bandha, for example. Muladhara chakra practices, that's what we do. So we're going to do all three of those areas of the pelvic floor now, so that you have a sense of how to activate them in the gross body way and have more of an idea of how you might then isolate the different areas. And these are different pranas which are used for different purposes. So it actually becomes very important in higher practices to understand the difference. Are you running out of juice, Lada?
Yeah, probably. So I will.
Is that the closest outlet, Mariska? Probably, yeah. Yeah. 6 of 1.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, anyway, what I was actually just going to say, which I forgot to say, was this. So there's the gross primary function of the parts of the pelvic floor, excretion and excreting fluids and excreting feces, and childbirth, ejaculation, those kinds of strong urges and drives, and they're under the control of not the conscious nervous system, right? That's the primary function of that musculature. Then maybe you knew that also in the gross body there's a function of those muscles in the pelvic floor which have to do with stabilizing the core. And most people do all kinds of different things, and they have some sense of what it is to do stabilization of the core, you know? Like maybe you think, oh, you know, plank pose or doing exercises on a Swiss ball or something, or I don't know what you think of when you think of stabilizing the core, but I think most people have heard this term these days probably, and they think of something, right? Well, what it means, it's not so much that you're activating this superficial muscles of the body, like the six-pack, you know, these muscles at the front. It's not that, and it's not even activating the more, a little bit less superficial oblique muscles. It's not that. What it is it's the muscles at the core. And when we say core muscles in the physical body, we're talking about the muscles which are right up against the bones. Super deep, the deepest of the deep.
Is that also the transverse?
Yeah. Transversus abdominis is the deepest of the abdominal muscles, right? And then all these musculatures that we're talking about here are right up against the bone, you know, the urethral muscles, the vaginal muscles. And they're when you activate the muscles of the pelvic floor, the vagina, for example, it has an effect on the transversus abdominis. And what's called the multifidus muscles, which are muscles along the spine, all along the spine. And you can imagine, you can think of like that, the what we're talking about, the transversus abdominis muscles and the multifidus muscles and the muscles of the pelvic floor are like a corset. You can think of it like a corset. And that's what it is to stabilize the spine. And the stabilizer muscles, which include all of those, which we've been talking about, have this really interesting thing that they do, and it's called pre-anticipatory function. They have a pre-anticipatory function. And what it means is, like, before you pick up a bag of groceries or cough or reach into your car, you know, or anything, these muscles activate. They activate. The brain, like it's 50 milliseconds or something. Before any movement is initiated, the stabilizer muscles come on, okay? Stabilize your spine so that when you throw or whatever, it's not like the tail is wagging the dog. You know what I mean? So it's like the dog is wagging the tail and the tail is not wagging the dog. So that's the stabilizer function. Then we go from the stabilizer function of the gross body into the the more gross, subtle body. So the more gross, subtle body are you could say the bandhas and the chakras at this level that we're talking about them right now. So when we talk about activating the vaginal muscles, we're talking about a subtler function of the gross body, but we're also trying to experience this energy, pranic energy, which is a subtle body activity. Okay. So we'll do Sahajoli Mudra, which is the urethral sphincters, next. Then we're going to do Ashvini Mudra, which is the anal sphincters. And I don't know, some of you may have noticed that depending on which yoga school you went to, sometimes when they teach the bandhas and they teach Mula Bandha, some schools teach Ashvini Mudra as Mula Bandha, and some schools, not very many, but the Bihar school, the Satyananda School of Yoga, teaches Sahajoli Mudra, what we're going to do now, as a part and parcel of Mula Bandha, and some schools teach the vaginal muscles as a function, as Mula Bandha, a way to get to Mula Bandha. And so don't be confused if you have run into some or all of these. That's, again, you know, nobody's wrong. Everybody's right. And you know, somebody will say, oh, well, all I can do is the anal sphincters. So their guru said, okay, well, look, you know, it's not the anal sphincters per se. It's the vaginal muscles. So why don't you try the vaginal muscles, you know? And somebody else will say, well, you know, I can't stop pee mid-flow. Oh, well, why don't you do the Sahajoli Mudra practices, you know? So as to understand the connection between Mula Bandha and the Sahajoli Mudra. Because there is a Sahajoli Mudra has a very important function in practice.
Which one is that?
We're going to do it now.
I'm just getting confused by the Sanskrit terms.
We're going to do it now. So we're going to do the urethral sphincter. Urethral sphincter, Sahajoli Mudra. Huh?
I'm just repeating it so I get the words.
Oh. Oh yeah, let's all say it. Sahajoli Mudra.
How do you spell that?
Urethral sphincters.
You'll
So
tell us how to spell it later.
yeah,
Sarah.
I think, did I put it in here? Maybe not. Well, it's 'cause it's secret teachings.
Mhm.
Well, it is. Okay. So, again, very comfortable and very, very relaxed. We can't, it's very difficult to access these energies if you're holding tension in your body. So, go through your body and ask each part to relax and let go. Several times. Mouth, let go. Hands, let go. Cheeks, let go. Brain, let go. Hips, let go. Chest, let go. So now you can imagine that you're practicing stopping and starting urine mid-flow. What would you do? This is called Kegels in the world of the gross body. Western medicine, Kegels are exercises which sometimes they prescribe for women who've just had babies to strengthen the muscles of the pelvic floor. Sometimes postnatal women can experience some degree of incontinence, or not just postnatal women. So Kegels are frequently prescribed, gently, gently activating the muscles that allow you to stop, pee, and then release, and activate, and release, and activate, and release. Notice how much subtler they are than the vaginal muscles. They're so soft and subtle, very gently activate and release, activate and release. Activate and release. Keep going. And relax, let go, completely let go. Much subtler. The muscles of the urethra sometimes need to be trained a little bit, because in the Western medical world, maybe it would be surprising for you to know that incontinence is defined as any loss of any involuntary loss of urine, any involuntary loss of urine, from one drop to an entire bladder full. So that sort of changes, it puts a whole new spin on it. And if you have any involuntary loss of urine from coughing or anything, you know, then this is a really good practice to do. It's a very good practice. And you know, you can do it when you're actually on the toilet, and you can actually do it and try to see whether you're able to stop urine mid-flow, but you should only do it as a test to see whether you're able to or not. And when you really have to urinate is not a good, what I'm trying to say is it's not a good exercise to do when you actually have to urinate. Okay? It's a good test, but, and you should be able to do it. You should be able to stop urine mid-flow. We all should be able to do that. And once you know that you can't, then go back and practice in some other setting, not when you have to pee. So that's Sahajali Mudra. Sahajali Mudra is clearly different from the Muladhara chakra, vaginal contractions, right? Those Muladhara contractions, that's Mula Bandha, activating the Mula Bandha. And you know, as I said to you, different schools are calling Mula Bandha different things, but so let me just say that Mula Bandha, Sahajali Mudra, Mula Bandha, and Ashwini Mudra, which we're going to do next, are sometimes used interchangeably. Often. They're often used interchangeably. Why? And you have to defer to the guru, you know. The guru decided for some specific person, like the one who wrote the book maybe, right? That's why, like, depending on which book you read, there's different instructions. It's really common. And there's another reason why they do that, actually. There's another reason why they do that. The other reason is that you're not supposed to do these practices without the guru. And they kind of make it almost impossible for you to do them without the guru there, without a teacher to show you and teach you. Because the instructions, even within one book, can be so contradictory or so unclear, you know, like what are they talking about? And it's totally on purpose that it's like that. Totally on purpose. Particularly with yoga texts and like meditation texts, ancient meditation texts, ancient yoga texts. They're really, really like it's designed to be almost impossible to do on your own, because you're not supposed to just go by the book and at Banyan and like do it. It wasn't meant to be like that, right?
Question again.
Mhm.
Sorry.
No, why?
The dense hair. Are you sitting on your feet?
Am I sitting on my feet?
Are you supposed to be? Is one supposed to? Am I supposed to be sitting on my feet?
You mean your heel?
Yeah.
The back heel?
Yeah.
Well, it's not supposed to be. If you know,
If
if
you
you're
can.
if you're doing Siddha Yoni Asana, that's where your heel would be. But that's not to say you're supposed to sit on your feet. You could be doing Sukhasana or something else.
Okay. With these
Baddha-Konasana.
practices.
I'm just saying it's not a supposed to be thing.
Right.
If Siddha Yoni Asana is what you're doing, then you would be sitting on your heel with the other heel stacked on top. If you were doing Sukhasana, then you would be sitting like this with the two heels, one in front of the other. Or maybe you were doing something else, right? Then there's this one. This one has some other name. What is it? Isn't this easy pose? Where you just
Yeah.
like, this is just easy cross-legged pose. That's different from this one here. I think this is different anyway. Isn't it?
It's different.
Yeah, no, it's,
Some people can't do that.
some people can't do this, and it looks like this, but this is a different pose from this. In Hatha Yoga Pradipika I'm talking about. I can't remember just at this moment off the top of my head. But this is one asana, and this is another, actually.
Can I ask a question about the placement of the heel? Then
Yeah.
segue to Tanji's question.
Yeah?
So if the heel is on the yoni, do you actually separate your labia somewhat?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna happen like that, right?
Eventually, okay.
It's
You
not
just
that.
kind of lean right in, sit
You're
right
just
on
leaning right into
Center
it.
yourself
And the
right on it.
reason-
Slightly.
Okay, and here's the thing with the top heel, while we're on the topic of this, the placement of the feet. the bottom heel is activating Mula Bandha. And I'm just leaning into my heel. It's not that I'm putting my heel into my vagina. I'm just leaning into my heel. Then the top foot is against this, right? The pubic bone, and that is in fact where the clitoris is. So the top heel is pressing into the clitoris. So, what are we doing, right? Why are we activating all these energies? Well, that's what we're doing. We're activating all these lower energies of the body. The top heel, that heel is activating the Sahajoli Mudra.
So it's all like a seal, isn't it?
It's a seal. These are the physical, they're doing physical seals, right? Then with the breath later you do other kinds of seals, and with prana, with the asana you do other kinds of seals.
Yeah.
But this top heel, which is pressing into the lower part of the pubic bone, is activating the energy, the pranic energy of Sahajoli Mudra, the one we just did, the urethral sphincter.
Before you go too far into this, and this is just me being really analytical, I'm trying to. So I was taught Mula Bandha, well, in the vague ways that it was taught over time. I've kind of absorbed it as a kind of this kind of diamond net, and I guess that so the tip of the diamond, I guess, would be the urethral. The point would be the anal sphincter, and
Diamond this way? Like flat?
like that. So imagine like that.
Oh yeah, okay.
So imagine if it's all of the pelvic floor, and that the bandha is somehow like engaging the whole thing
Yeah.
as like a kind of a contraction and lifting up.
Mula Bandha?
Yeah, that the whole thing was Mula Bandha.
Yeah, it's what you're saying. I'm not going to say it's true or right or wrong.
So you're saying that some people
is
talk about
so.
it, but
Yes.
but at one point I thought you also said that the Mula Bandha was actually 2 to 3 inches down from the top of the cervix on the posterior wall.
Muladhara chakra. Did I say Mula Bandha?
Different, right?
Or maybe I said Mula Bandha. Sorry.
I'm not sure.
Did I say chakra? I'm sorry if I did that, because that's not right. It's Muladhara chakra, which is against the posterior wall of the vaginal
And
canal.
that's confusing. That's not the same thing. Because I was
No.
thinking of it. I've always guessed that sort of
So,
thought it was the same thing.
These things that we're doing are exercises to activate Muladhara chakra. These are exercises to activate Muladhara chakra.
Okay.
Mula Bandha, in the Satyananda school, they teach Mula Bandha as this pranic energy of that happens when you activate the vaginal muscles. However, they also simultaneously teach Sahajoli Mudra and Ashvini Mudra. At the Salt Spring Center of Yoga, it's Ashvini Mudra that's taught as Mula Bandha. Mula Bandha. We haven't done Ashvini Mudra yet, we're about to. But that's how they teach Mula Bandha. So what you're saying, it's true what you're saying. It's not necessarily just the vaginal muscles, and it's not necessarily just the anal sphincters or the urethral sphincters. But what it is, in the way that I have learned it, and in my own personal practice, my experience of these energies is that they are very different energies. They're very different energies. The energy of the urethral sphincters has it has a specific purpose in other practices. The energy of the vaginal muscles has a specific purpose in asana and other practices. The energy of Ashvini Mudra has a specific purpose. Like what, for example, you might ask? I remember I did. I'm like, what Ashvini Mudra, Like, most of us know that Mula Bandha, right? You float into Bakasana, you use Mula Bandha. Or like standing poses, you activate Mula Bandha, it's much easier. Like mostly that's what I hear taught in asana classes. Ashvini Mudra is the mudra that really facilitates Sarvangasana, shoulder stand.
Which one? That's the
Shoulder
anal
stand. Yeah,
sphincter?
which we're about to do.
Ashvini.
Ashvini, we're going to do that now. But where is Floriana?
No, her bag's still there. She's in the washroom.
I think she left. I hope she's okay.
Her purse was there.
No, I know, but I saw her leave.
Welcome, Nita.
I just don't want to start the meditation if she's going to walk in any second, so I'll do something else for a bit.
What about, does it matter which foot is
wear?
Oh,
No,
it doesn't
it's
really,
interchangeable.
no, and you should switch. You shouldn't be in the habit of doing just one on the bottom all the time. Yeah. So, so Lada said, "Oh, I feel a heat," right? She said, "Oh, I feel a heat." And that is actually another very important point, which is this is a good time to talk about. You know, why are we doing these practices again? What was it? Like, we want to be this some sort of a cool being that, you know, can float around and save people from certain disaster in like some 2015 super woman, you know. Minus the phone booth, because there aren't any. We can like change in our cell phones, right? Like evolve as some other kind of being. You know, hatha practices are meant to shift around the elemental structure of your body, your physical body. That's what they're meant to do. So we are composed of, you know, this, right? And this is like physical flesh and all that, and bone and all that stuff, and there's lots of fluid in there. And then there's the nervous system, which is like some different something, right? It's neither bone nor is it fluid. It's something different. You know, you can say it's energy, right? And then there's some other thing that drives it all, you know, somewhere up here, right? That says, you know, pick up that child, you know, or, right? Or poo, or whatever, right? Something up here is driving everything somehow, right? Right? You know, the brain, the central nervous system, this consciousness that gives rise to everything, right? So, you know, we say that we're composed of these 5 elements: earth, water, wind, fire, wind, and then, you know, ether or consciousness, right? And hatha yoga practices are meant to decrease the level of earth and water elements in our bodies and increase the level of fire and wind elements in our bodies.
I want to say why, but
Right. You should. I'm thinking, isn't somebody going to say why? Why indeed? Because the subtle body, you know, when you talk about the subtle body, I mean, when you talk about a gross body, right, you're talking about a preponderance of earth and fluid, earth and water element. As you start to talk about a subtle body, you're talking about an increase in fire and wind, fire and prana elements
things
of
that
the
could
body.
evaporate, or
Things
not,
that
aren't there.
Things that aren't there. They're ineffable. They're not subject like earth and water. They're not subject to, like, for example, continuous replenishment or excretion types of practices. So bodies that are primarily fire and wind are less susceptible to earth and water obstacles, like, for example, walls or, you know, water. Like, you might be able to walk on water or walk through walls if you didn't have such a high proportion of earth and water elements in your body. If you were more fire and wind, right, then a wall would not prove an obstacle to you. So your consciousness and your fire element and your water element and your wind element and your whatever the other one is are all hinging upon a certain predisposition to one or the other of those elements or some of those elements. So how do you shift that proportion? You know, how do we shift that proportion of elements to become more ineffable, you know, less susceptible to the obstacles posed in our physical universe. And hatha practice is like a big one. Hatha is a very direct practice, very direct. So as you do these kinds of practices, pranayama and asana and mudra bandha practices, they decrease the earth and water elements in your body. They decrease the earth and water elements in your body significantly. Okay, so for example, you know, Roger and I, we're in retreat. We're doing these practices a lot. That's all we're doing. We got skinny, you know. We got very, very thin. And, you know, kind of like in this right here and now in the world, out here in the world, it's what you would call alarmingly skinny. Alarmingly skinny, right? But in practice, in retreat, it was perfect. It was perfect. Our practice went very well when we were at that particular degree, proportionate degree of earth to water to wind to fire to wind, you know, to consciousness, right? So as your body increases in fire and wind element, the consciousness that supports those elements becomes more and more and more predominant.
Were
And the
you eating this or
consciousness.
just somehow burning it?
Well, that's right. The answer is yes, although it was an or question. The answer is yes. You know, so when you no longer have so much physical body, you don't need to eat. And then you don't need to pee so much, and you don't need to do all the different things. And you know, yeah, exactly. And what is very hilarious is when we were attending school in Arizona, we lived in an RV, and the RV is so cool, you know, because the RV has the poo tank, and then it has the fridge, right? And we would have to unanchor ourselves from our, you know, our spot where we were parked. We would have to unanchor ourselves and drive into this town 45 minutes away in order to empty the poo tanks and fill up the fridge.
Just move it from one part of the RV to the other.
And we found it hilarious, and it was always a source of great hilarity, you know, that we had these bodies. It's like, come on already, you know.
So the question is, you go less frequently
Anyway,
over time?
the point is that when you start to increase the fire and the wind, then you literally become lighter. You literally have a much, much higher, the consciousness is now supporting the fire and the wind element. That means prana. So you have a much higher association with the pranic energy in your body than the blood and the nutrient distribution systems and the, right? So it starts out as a much higher awareness of how your nervous system is driving your body, and that sort of evolves into a much higher awareness of just the prana energy, you know. The prana energy is much subtler than the nervous system. So, and that's the point from a hatha perspective. What's going on with like your attitude meanwhile, right? As your body becomes light, literally. Like it becomes light from a point of view of standing on the scale, but it also becomes light from a point of view of that you become composed of light and not so much blood and phlegm, you know, and physical tissue, right? It's both. And what happens is that there is a, you know, the yogic texts, the translations anyway of the yogic texts, use terms like, you know, raises your consciousness, right? Raises your consciousness. What does that mean when your consciousness is raised? What it means is that you just have this completely different sense of me, you see? And then because the me is not so physically delineated anymore, you know, physically there isn't this line, you know, right? Then this whole concept of me gets kind of fuzzy, right? Because you don't have this like identification with this demarcation, you know? And then what? So then what? Well, we'll all practice hard, and whoever gets there first can send a postcard to the rest of us. How's that? Deal? Okay? Promise to send a postcard. So that's what we're all doing here, you know, we're trying to figure out how and what that postcard would look like, right? That we're gonna send. So that's the thing with the elemental structure of the body. The elemental structure of the body, we're going in that direction. We're trying, and so, you know, people say, oh yeah, you know, we're gonna be light bodies, you know, like I always used to think, what are they talking about? We're gonna be light bodies. It all sounded a little airy fairy to me, and it frankly wasn't good enough for me. I'm like, what do you mean exactly? What exactly do you mean? Like, what light body, you know? Right? This is the one that we're talking about. It's a physical, scientific process. It's a method. Hatha Yoga Pradipika outlines it. Did you have to put money in the parking meter or something?
Well, then it takes too long
Oh,
to explain.
okay,
It took me an
fine.
hour to,
Good.
It took me all this time to.
We were waiting for you before we did our Ashvini Mudra.
I think long discussion. Someone ended up giving me 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then
So we're going to do the anal sphincters now. We didn't want you to miss the anal sphincters. So we went off on a big light body rant.
Oh, thank you.
But you'll have to listen to the audio to get the light body rant.
Okay.
So Ashvini Mudra is the third posterior part of the pelvic floor, and some people call it Mula Bandha, right? We go back to that. Some people call this Mula Bandha. So let's experience what this one feels like. Again, always start with letting go, completely letting go. Relax. Let your shoulders go. Lips, let go. Throat, let go. Hands, let go. Belly, let go. And so, imagine that you're in a crowded elevator and you've eaten raw onions or something. I don't know, something that gives you terrible gas. And your belly is bloated and you have to pass gas, something fierce, but you're in a crowded elevator. So what do you do in order to keep from passing gas? You know? What is the thing that you do? Somehow you hold on, right? So now imagine that the elevator has arrived at your floor, and thankfully nobody's going to get out but you. You're the only one, so you get out of the elevator and the doors close, and now you can release whatever it was you were doing and go ahead and relieve some of this gas. Let it go. So I call this, in some other courses I teach, I call it the gas stoppers. It's the anal sphincters. It's called Ashvini Mudra in Sanskrit. So very gently activate them again, anal sphincters, and release, and engage, and release, and engage, and release. Keep going rhythmically, not too fast, not too slow. It's a stronger energy than Sahajali Mudra. It's a stronger energy than the urethral sphincter. Rhythmically contract and relax. Ashwini Mudra. And now completely release. And let go. Let your sitting bones go. Let your pubic bone go. Let your shoulders go. Let your jaw go. Relax. Let go. Now, go back to your vaginal muscles and activate them a few times, more like the speed of an elevator door opening and closing, a little slower than Ashwini Mudra. Very clear in your mind with the engaging phase as opposed to the releasing phase. Very clear. Engage and release. Totally release. Maybe you want to open your eyes and gaze at your nose tip to help you. Up to you. Now relax. Again, let your pubic bone go, your sitting bones go, your hips relax, buttocks let go, belly let go. And then take your awareness to the urethral sphincter, Sahajali Mudra. In men, it's called Vajrali Mudra. And now engage your pee stopper muscles as though you were starting and stopping the flow of urine. Much subtler, softer energy. About the same speed as the vaginal muscles, Mula Bandha. And let go your pubic bone now. Let go your belly again. Let go your hips. Buttocks relax. And then go back to Ashwini Mudra. Anal sphincters. A little bit quicker, rhythmic contractions. completely release and relax your entire midsection. Let go. And then just for a couple of minutes, I'd like you to go back and forth through the three, just by yourself, focusing on isolating the areas, completely isolating the areas. Okay, totally relax. So become very heavy now in your sitting bones. Ask yourself to let go several times. Not holding any residual tension, any resting tension in your body. Oops, I'm sorry. So it's very important to ask yourself to let go, because sometimes these practices, you know, that you do them for a while and you're not aware of it, but you're holding this like resting tension, and that can contribute to sort of like, it's like if you do too much of these kinds of practices, then you might become constipated, or you might have trouble peeing and stuff like that. So, and that comes from too much residual tension that you're never really letting go of, you know? And then you start to mess with these sphincters, because the sphincters are dependent upon everything being completely at a state of neutral rest, you know? And then otherwise those sphincters don't work.
That would be contraindication, yes?
It would be. Did you hear what Leonardo said, everyone? She said, would that be a contraindication? Yes, it would. Actually happened. It happened to one of our teachers that they couldn't pee because they overdid this Sahajali practice, Sahajali Vajra practice. And we also have the experience of doing too much bandha practice, and then you very easily can get constipated, and it raises the heat, right? So that's the other thing, is it really raises the heat. So what's happening, right? It's raising your internal heat. When your internal heat rises, it dries out your body fluids. It's called reduction in the water element. When that happens, your digestive system speeds up big time. As your digestive system speeds up big time, you assimilate nutrients from whatever food you're taking so efficiently and so fast that you virtually have to eat nothing, and you like totally nourished, and you don't have to like go, you know, you don't have to have bowel movements very much, and they're not really big, and at first it's called constipation, right? Initially that's what it's called, because you still think, oh, you know, I gotta eat more than this, you know, Roger will say, that's not enough, you gotta eat more, you know, so like I'll eat more, but you don't. You see, like there is a point when you actually don't, and you know, this is I am talking about practicing in an extreme way, okay? But it, you know, in just a simple few minutes of practice, you know, you'll notice that it raises the heat energy, and it really, really fires up the digestive system. And the result of that is you will digest your food much more efficiently, and more of the food that you eat will be digested and assimilated. And that looks like a much healthier digestive system, a much healthier body, right? And everything is moving much more quickly and efficiently. And so, you know, you're not like sluggish. You're not sluggish looking, you're not feeling sluggish, you're like light. And prana-ish.
What you were saying earlier though about the sphincters not Like basically, I mean, are you saying they're cramping up in a way?
They do. That's exactly what happens. So if you don't totally release them, right, they stay in this contracted state, semi-contracted
Yeah.
state at rest, and then you could call it a cramp.
And
yeah.
we're spending all this time trying to understand what it feels like so that we can, because it's so subtle, so that we can engage it, and then it's kind of, you get the opposite problem at a certain point. It's
Exactly.
like you have to focus on trying to release.
Yes, and it does happen. It does. I mean, it happens pretty easily, actually. You know, if you seriously do the practices.
Yeah.
So just to watch for that, and yes, it's a contraindication. And I'd like everybody to stand up and stand on their toes, like this. I know, my toenails. My son got married yesterday. That is the reason that my toenails look like this. Because it was an occasion of great joy. So we're just going to go like this and stand on all 10 toes and then go back down. And when you stand on all 10 toes, try not to collapse your feet to the outer edges. Try to stay evenly weighted on all 10 toes and back down. All 10 toes. Good. And once you get that, it's probably, you're doing it beautifully. It's easier on a hard surface rather than a cushy surface.
The
Yeah.
blanket's making it easy.
It probably makes it easier when you're not on a blanket or even on a carpet. Plus a blanket would be more difficult probably, but anyway, it's easy on wood or tile. And then we're going to add some arms here. The palms fingers clasped like this and the palms face up. Yeah. And then as you come up onto all 10 toes, you're going to simultaneously inhale and stretch your arms up. So we go. So I'm going inhale and then exhale as you lower down. Inhale and exhale. Inhale. And then as you get a little steadier and you can stay evenly weighted through all 10 toes, you might find it easier to gaze up a little. Helps you keep your balance and stretch your arms up a little higher. Stay balanced. Good. Do a couple more.
Of course, it's easier if you engage your pelvic floor.
Good. So then next one is a little bit more difficult, and the trick is to keep your gaze directly ahead of you. So the next one, you can change the clasp of your fingers now. So as you inhale, you come up onto all 10 toes again, and you're going to side bend. And then the other way, inhale, side bend. And you can stand against a wall like this if you feel a little unsteady. Or even right up against the wall and side bend so that your head or something has a bit of support if you're concerned about your balance. And so you can notice, right, that the trick is now to keep yourself weighted through your feet evenly in such a way that you can take ground force and get you into that side bend. So it feels like you're having to put more weight into the outside foot. You know what I mean, right? So going side to side and really stretch your arms too. Really, really stretch through your arms, your clasped fingers like this. Good. So what this series of very simple little things does is it stretches every part of the nervous system when we do this. Every part of the nerves of your body, all the nerves of your body from your toes, tips of your toes to your fingertips are getting this big stretch. And this is in preparation for trying to experience even subtler parts of the subtle body. It's useful to stretch the nerves and try to get the congestion, off the nerves, right? And when the nerves are congested, and they do get congested with phlegm, literally, like gunky. Gunky, right? Snotty. Snotty nerves all through your body. We have snotty nerves, and these things really clean, like stretch the nerves and release the congealed
You're
stuckness.
saying like literally, like if you
Literally.
were to cut into the body and looked at the nerves, there would be Carolyn stuff.
Yeah. Well, they're all sitting in there. It's not like they have some protective encasing, saran wrap or something. Well, actually, they do, and it's called fascia, but the fascia also gets all gunky and snotty and stuff. It does. So, nice. Good. So you'll feel, this is a really amazing thing to do in the morning, by the way, first thing in the morning. It really helps if you're constipated. It like totally helps. Stretches all the nerves in your body, right? Including all of the nerves which drive the digestive system. And everything just like starts moving along like crazy. So we do this little thing every morning, and then we go like this, and you can do this too. So standing in one place, and it's not driven by your breath. You just breathe normally, and you swing, and let some momentum happen. You can let your arms start to go faster and faster. So the one arm is coming, the hand is coming to the shoulder, and the other hand is reaching around the waist. So hand to shoulder, and the other hand to the waist, around the waist. Yeah, good.
And
That's it.
benefits,
Huh?
and the benefits.
So I'm showing you 5 exercises right now, okay? And if you come to the Hatharga Pradipika retreat, we'll be doing this. These are 5 exercises involved in what's called Shanka Prakshalana. Do you know Shanka Prakshalana practice? It's like a practice that's used to clear out the entire digestive system. Not like enema, but it has the same effects as that. Yeah, same effects. So and the practice is preceded by these 5 exercises. Those 3, and then the next one, because that's good. The next one is it's like a little twisting cobra. See, I'll show you sideways. So it's cobra. You could put your hands under your shoulders, but stay on your toes like this. Curl your toes under. And then what you do is you totally let your butt go. Your whole torso stays so relaxed. It's not like you're trying to push up into a cobra, and this is completely relaxed. Can you see? My buttocks and my whole belly is just like sagging into the floor, There's no tension in my midsection at all. And then you just inhale and look around the corner at one heel, and you exhale back down. Inhale. Look around the corner at the other heel. Exhale back down. Okay? So, generally you do 8 to each side, but we won't do that many right now. And this practice is phenomenal for moving the bowels, because you start by looking around the corner to the right. So what you're doing is you're squeezing the left colon, side of the colon. And as you twist like that, it squeezes out that ascending colon. Which side is the descending on again? The left.
right.
Oh, the right, yeah. So you twist to the right first.
Oh, no,
it's
on the
not.
left.
You twist to the right first, because whichever is on whichever side. Okay, listen, it's okay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You twist to the right first, because that pushes whatever is in the colon into the right side, the correct side.
Appendicitis.
Such random information.
Okay, but what I'm trying to say is you need to twist to the right first. And the reason you need to twist to the right first is because twisting to the right first pushes the fecal matter into that part of the colon, which it then can make its way around the corner and down and out. So you twist to the right first, exhale back down. Inhale, twist to the left, exhale back down. Yeah, and try to keep the pubic bone close to the floor, so you're not lifting up so high. It's just that you're relaxing your butt completely. That's great, Floriana. Awesome. Good. You just inhale and you look around the corner. Yeah, good. Really good. So, I don't know, usually I can't even get through 8 on each side. I have to go to the bathroom.
So maybe we
It's
should
really
stop.
true. And there is a 5th exercise, which I'm not going to show you just because it's like a little bit more involved and it's not important. And for this moment, I wanted to do these exercises with you, A, because we're all going to fall asleep, and B, because I wanted to wake up your nervous systems a little bit and clear them before we do a couple more things here. So that's nice, right?
So you breathe, like
Inhale up,
inhale up, and then you exhale.
You inhale up and look around the corner, and you
Okay,
exhale
so it's
down.
one breath.
Yeah.
One inhale breath.
Yes.
There.
Yeah. Exactly.
I couldn't resist taking my feet are camping feet.
So that should feel quite nice, and like it really should wake you up. Feel a little bit more. A little bit.
It's, oh, sorry.
And then, because now we're going to get a little even more subtle. Well, for me anyway, it was harder to now. We're moving into. See, what we've done so far is we have done practices which heighten the awareness of the lower chakra, lowest chakra, Muladhara chakra. Say Muladhara. She doesn't pronounce it like that, Swami Muktidananda. Muladhar. Muladhar.
Irish.
Anyway, so it's the lowest chakra, and it's the one that's against the posterior wall of the vaginal canal, 2 or 3 inches into the body, and it's like a hot spot. They call it something. What do they call it?
It's not the G spot.
It's the G, isn't it?
Is it?
Well, I don't. I'm not really sure.
I thought it was at the front too.
The G front is at the front.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh well, it's not that then.
It's the anterior.
Anyway.
We'll have to go and check. Maybe Google will tell us.
So this Muladhara chakra, the lowest of the chakras, is you all know that it's very much concerned with and raises the energy of survival energies, right? Instinctive survival energies. What are instinctive survival energies?
Things to do with family and.
Yeah, like
Right.
sex, for
Yeah,
example.
well, yeah.
That's the energy that it raises, right? The energies of procreation, the energies of we must survive. We must continue. We must procreate. These are the energies of Muladhara chakra. So in the Satyananda system, the Satyananda school of yoga, they advise very strongly that you work with Ajna chakra before you move to Muladhara chakra. Ajna chakra is the chakra of discriminating wisdom. Discriminating wisdom is the wisdom that lets you say, oh, what am I going to do with all this sexual energy? And the discriminating wisdom lets you say, oh, you know what? I'm going to see whether I can harness this heat energy and draw it into my central channel so that I can raise my consciousness and transcend the lower energies of us humans, you know?
Taoists do that, like
Pardon?
Tao.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah, they do.
they do.
Well, I think all religions do that. All religions are trying to get us to, like, be holy. Right? Like, let's try to be holy and raise our consciousness above, sex and food, basically. Can we think about something besides sex and food for a minute? Why don't you try God,
Or money.
Okay, money. We can say try and raise our consciousness above sex, food, and money, Right? So that's what we're trying to do, basically. And so the discriminating, that's why they want to, they teach to raise your awareness of Ajna Chakra so that you remember what you're supposed to do with all this heat that you've raised in the lower part of your body, right? Oh yeah, it's the circle. Right? No, I'm serious. And when you work with Ajna Chakra and you have a different perspective on what just felt like sexual energy, and it has a whole different flavor to it, and you get to have this whole different use of it. And it's an extremely powerful energy, and it will serve all of us very well. Because, it's Kali Yuga, right? Kali Yuga is the age of degeneration. We're in the age of degeneration right now. We're at the height of the age of degeneration. The desire realm. Like, hello, what's the rest of the billions and billions of people in this planet doing right now, Like, I saw this sex shop on the way down driving here, and the ad on the sex shop was, way better than Viagra, it says. And I thought, well, that's good. No, really, I did, I thought, it's true. It is way better than Viagra, than taking drugs. It's got to be better than taking drugs. And I don't know that, anyway, that's a different discussion. But the point is that the lower chakras have an incredible dispensary of energy for our use, for our spiritual use. And the system of yoga is teaching how to do that, is teaching how to do exactly that, how to transform into a being that not only transcends a lower use, which doesn't really serve us that well, but not only that, but transforms us into a being that has absolutely no need, of food or sex or money or sleep or stuff like that. I know, how nice would that be? I'm talking about need. I'm not saying, I'm saying, there's something about the need part, which to me is like, it's not that I have anything against food, sex, or money, okay? I don't. I'm just saying it's the need that I don't like that, I'd rather not be a person who needed it. That's all I'm saying. So we're going to move now to the Manipura chakra. The Manipura chakra, we're going to move to Svadhisthana. Although Svadhisthana doesn't specifically enter into, it does in a sort of an indirect way. So Mula Bandha is primarily concerning itself with the specific location of the Muladhara chakra. The Muladhara chakra awareness heightening exercises are the ones that we've just done, right? All of them raise the awareness of Mula Bandha, Muladhara chakra. So it's as Robin was saying, although my teachers have taught me that it's primarily the vaginal muscles, which your consciousness should hook into the vaginal muscles as Mula Bandha, Like, so for example, if I'm going into Bakasana or something, I'm going to do a standing balance, right? Come up on my toes. If I think consciously in my mind, activate my vaginal muscles, right? It would work for me to do that. Is it that isolated? Probably not. If you have a propensity to being much more of a kind of a butt gripper kind of person, I call it the butt gripper kind of person, who's a little bit like anally, a little anal and tight in the anal sphincters, then you might want to do more Sahajali practice. Yeah, exactly. So it's all kind of subtle, okay? But anyway, suffice to know that those mudras and bandhas are the ones that connect with Muladhara chakra. Manipura chakra, the awareness of Manipura chakra, is an Uddiyana Bandha connection. So when you activate Uddiyana Bandha, it's Manipura chakra that you're affecting directly affecting Uddiyana Bandha, Manipura chakra. Manipura chakra is located at the level of the navel. So if you put your fingers into your navel, and you draw a circle around your waist and you go to the back. That point on your spine is the location of Manipura chakra. I don't know if you knew, but all the chakras except Muladhara have a corresponding location in the front of the body called Kshetram. Kshetram location. The Kshetram location of Manipura chakra is the navel.
So, you're saying a corresponding spot on the front part, meaning that the chakras are all at the back,
Yes.
or they're supposed to be like literally on the spine?
Literally,
Well,
they're in
not
front.
take that word out.
Well, no, literally, they're in front of the spine.
Okay.
Literally, and they're not. It's not like you could cut open the
Right.
body and see it,
Right.
as you said, right?
Yeah.
But that is where they are. That's where they are.
So they're
It's-
both in front, but there's like kind of maybe two levels.
You know what it is? Is it corresponds to the plexuses, plexi, like the plexuses, plexuses. The sacral plexus is Svadhisthana chakra. The what's this one called?
Solar plexus.
Solar plexus is Manipura chakra. The I forget them all the time. This is the plexus right here at the heart chakra, right? And here too. So that's what they correspond to. Plexus, in other words, a bunch of nerves, which are coming out at that level from the central spine, central spinal canal. And in the gross body, that's where they are, right at those points. So the Manipura chakra is at the solar plexus, and it's right here. Draw our fingers around the navel, find that spot, and one of the most important things that Roger and I both noticed with Manipura chakra is A, that it's quite difficult to locate, it's quite difficult to pinpoint, and B, if your posture is not absolutely perfectly erect, you can't find it. And if you have any tendency to slump when you're in meditation, you'll lose Manipura chakra. So if everybody now goes to a point here, and put a finger or two, or your thumb even on that point, and can you feel like if you run your fingers up and down along the spine, you'll feel bony protuberances, especially if you bend forward like this a little. Can you feel the knobbies? Okay. Vertebrae, those are the vertebrae, right? When we say sit up straight, right, you shouldn't be able to feel any of those protuberances. They should all recede. So see if you can do that. Feel them, and then run your fingers down along your spine. And then what does it take to sit up so straight that those knobbies are not protruding anymore? Okay? So now you're in a neutral spine, right? Okay? So particularly with Manipura, that's important. So find that particular level again and make sure that particular spinous process is what it's called. That particular spinous process is not protruding. Keep your thumb on it. And then just keep your thumb on there for a second as you situate yourself into your relaxed, comfortable meditation position again. But just keeping your thumb pressing against that spot. Checking every few seconds that it's not starting to protrude, because guess what? It's not hard. It doesn't take much for that spinous process to protrude. Try it. It's the most subtle little shift. Even just your chin dropping forward takes your spine out of that position that it needs to be in to do any kind of work with your prana and your sushumna. Okay? And that just tells you how subtle it really is, right? That cannot protrude, okay? So keep your thumb on there, and when you find a position where you can hold the sushumna in that absolutely straight position, with the sitting bones grounding you, you might start to feel not only heat, but almost like an electric zappy energy. Very relaxed. Very, very relaxed. Everything else very relaxed. And just your thumb pressing. And it can come gradually as you press, as everything else relaxes. Maybe you'll feel some kind of electrical energy. It's just sort of like a zzz, it's kind of an energy sometimes. If you don't think you're in the right spot, landmark it again. I like to use my thumb because it's a steady, strong pressure. Steady, strong pressure. Very, very slowly, without opening your eyes. Release your thumb gradually. Relax your hands. Keep your spine in that position and keep your consciousness focused on the sensation, the residual ghost sensation of where your thumb was pressing. Keep your consciousness there. Keep your mind there. Draw your mind back into that sensation. Draw your mind in a little tighter. Don't lose the consciousness of that sensation. Bring it back. Bring it back. Bring it back. Now try to bring it back again. And relax. So when you draw your consciousness into a point like that, a sensation, especially a sensation, if you're right in the crucial point of the chakra, it's much easier. So landmarking, initially landmarking using your physical body is very important, and doing it over and over so that you feel, and then it'll get to, you'll landmark it like this and you'll feel like, oh, okay, that's it, I got it, And so you have to practice, right? You have to practice it. And that's what happens when you practice, is that then you get it. And it will come. And you'll be like, oh yeah, that's it. And when you get that sense of, oh yeah, that's it, then you keep your thumb on it for a bit, a minute or 2 minutes, and then you release your thumb slowly, and the feeling should be as though your thumb were still there. The sharpness and the intensity of holding the sensation should be that sharp. And when you do that, then you have withdrawn your consciousness from your outer senses, from the interaction of your senses with your external environment, including your body, right? Every part of your body except that part of your body. And then you have a crack at Kevala Kumbhaka. So Kevala Kumbhaka is a spontaneous, what it means is spontaneous retention or spontaneous capsule. And it's the Sanskrit term that's referring to what happens in a state of samadhi when your breath stops spontaneously, because all of your awareness has gone to a single focal point. And as a result of the fact that your mind has drawn in, and as a result of the fact that the mind and the breath are inextricably connected, you cannot separate them. So when you take your mind to a certain place, your breath has to come too. And when you take your mind to a still place like that, then your breath also is going to go to that still place. And so then when your mind stops on that place and stays on that place, then your breath stops and stays. And that's Kevala Kumbhaka, spontaneous retention. And it is the goal of these hatha practices. That is what's going on here. And that is a platform where you can stand and move very, very quickly forward. You can move very quickly forward in spiritual practice when you have that ability to bring your mind and your breath to a point, stop it, and keep it. That's the point. That's samadhi. Kevala Kumbhaka is the preferred method of pranayama, by the way. That is the preferred method of pranayama. Why do we do all... Why do we do all that then? Because it's so hard to do the other one. Because it's so hard. So I'll tell you, just in my opinion, that hatha practice makes it very easy, actually. For me, for my particular karmic predisposition, this practice makes it very easy for me to bring my mind and my prana and my breath to a particular single place. There are many ways that we can do that, right? Many, many different ways that we can do that. But pranayama is one. That kind of practice that we just did is one, right? Where you're focusing and the object of your meditation are your chakras. It's called a chakra sadhana practice, a chakra practice. So that's a practice of hatha yoga. Pranayama is like a much more gross way to achieve the same thing. So if you sit there and you do gross pranayama practice, alternate nostril or like ujjayi or whatever, right, kind of pranayama you're doing, it has the same effect, right? Eventually your mind will come down, your mind will get stiller, and then you can eventually it becomes very automatic, and then eventually you let go of this hand over here, and then eventually you're not really doing anything, It's just almost like a psychic manipulation of the prana, you know, through one nostril out the other. The Tibetans start there, right? Interestingly, right? But but the whole point is not to do this forced retentions. That's really not the point. The point is that spontaneous retention that you guys all just did, because I said bring your mind back to that feeling, you know, and you had somewhere to go with your mind, right? And that somewhere pulled you, right? If you, right? It pulled you. And you can go there. You could go there and you could just try to keep going there. And that's what it's really all about. So the more you have a very good familiarity with the landmarking systems, the easier it will be. The sensation will be stronger. The clue is that it's you when you got it, you know it kind of thing. Yeah. It's this electric kind of zzz kind of a thing.
I might have to just say that I'm concerned that my body's in a little bit, it's not much helpful, so I might just have to stop with
Yeah.
the stream and save it so I don't lose it.
Oh yeah, yeah, sure,
You
sure.
know, lose
Yeah,
the-
yeah, absolutely. It's
the
fine.
meaning.
I mean, it's 5 to 5, and so we're done. We're done. And what I want to say is this, that, you know, before we reconvene, it will be very good if you did the things that we did today. It will be very helpful if you do the practices of Manipura chakra. Uddiyana is a very, it seems like a really easy practice, but it's actually not an easy practice. It's a difficult practice, especially to do it. It's not that easy to do an asana, actually, as you might think, you know. It's not that easy, you know, and maybe you've been to a yoga class where the teacher was cueing you to do Uddiyana Bandha, like in a downward dog or something like that. I know it happened to me, it has happened to me, that I was in an asana class and the teacher said, oh, you know, downward dog, Uddiyana Bandha, and I thought, I can't do Uddiyana Bandha right now. And I couldn't. And it was a long time before I spontaneously